The Italian Peaks is an area along the Continental Divide that also marks the boundary between Montana and Idaho, as well as being the southernmost place in Montana. I realized on the 7-hour trip to the trailhead that this would be a special adventure because the drive itself was worth the time. Stunning snow-covered peaks, sagebrush plains, and sheer rock canyon walls, the drive down was simply amazing, especially the road back in through the canyon of Big Sheep Creek, which I found out when I got back home is a national backcountry byway. Besides the outstanding scenery, the area is a fascinating mix of Western ranching and homesteading history and hideaway McMansions of the wealthy. Eventually, I emerged from the canyon to a high desert plateau surrounded by imposing mountains, feeling like I'd been somehow transported to a remote, mystical place straight out of the Lord of the Rings or along the ancient Silk Road.
Hey guys, it's Dan from Shasta Bubba Adventures. I'm at the start of a new hike, and this is the Italian Peaks Loop. And this is Memorial Day weekend, so a little iffy on how far I can get in this loop because the highest point is around 9,500 feet, and there's still quite a bit of snow up there. I did bring my snowshoes, so let's go. Well, I'm 2 miles in, and that's the first snow on the trail. I'm at 8,000 feet already, so that's not too bad, and this is just little patches in the shade, so not worried yet. Well, I made it to the first junction, and this trail on the right is the trail from Nicola Creek, and I right now will be following the CDT some more up over this ridge to Dead Man Lake. And that is the ridge I'm talking about.
Incidentally, throughout this trip, I insisted on mispronouncing the name of the stream I was following as Nicola. I believe it's actually pronounced Nicolia Creek.
Well, just down there is where we're going to leave the CDT, because that trail is going to follow Dead Man Creek back that way, back to Dead Man Lake. The canyon gets pretty narrow as I'm climbing up, and the creek has gone underground, as was predicted. Well, it's 7 o'clock and I'm still a couple of miles and about 600 feet away from, elevation wise, away from the lake I was hoping to camp at. Not sure if I'm going to make it to that. Well, the trail is down there, but I didn't want to stay down in that very cold draw with the snow. So I'm basically going cross country at this point, because I believe that lake is just up over this ridge. So hopefully I'm gonna cut off a little distance. Here's the top of the ridge between Dead Man Creek and heading down to Divide Creek Lake. Pretty cozy looking, huh? Might be a chilly night. Since I knew it was going to be very cold when I went down in that basin where the Divide Lake was, I decided to sit and eat my dinner up on the sunny warm ridge and enjoy the view instead. It was 8 o'clock after all. Might as well. I knew that once I go down that hill, I'm going to just want to set up the tent and jump into the sleeping bag as soon as possible. Well, I got my tent set up and I think I'm all ready for bed. It's about 9 o'clock, so I think I've earned my sleep today. Looks like 10.6 miles, and I'm camping at 8,800 feet. The part of the lake that was open last night is frozen over overnight. Not a surprise. It's not many backcountry campsites that have a picnic table. Probably would have been nice to camp down here by the table and have that to use for breakfast, but I knew that it would be a lot colder camping down next to the water in the cold sink. So my tent site is about 100 feet higher, and it was 28 degrees last night. Good morning. The plan for today is to head up over that pass, and I'm a little nervous about it, I don't mind telling you, because I'm not too sure how deep the snow is and how firm the snow is going to be. I've got my snowshoes, so I don't really worry too much about post holing. I think I'll be okay there. Main concern is not climbing up into the pass, but coming down the other side. It's kind of steep and rocky, and I'm a little worried. It's a beautiful, beautiful sunny day, but that can be a problem on the snow. And so we'll see. I hope not to start any slides is the main concern. We're all packed up and ready to hit the trail. Had a nice easy morning, taking it slow. It's 9 o'clock, hitting the trail a little later than normal, but I planned on that because I knew it was going to be a cold morning and I wanted to take my time and actually warm up before I hit the trail. First thing I have to do is climb back up to that ridge, and I'm not going to put on the snowshoes to start with, even though there were some steep drifts in that part, but I think I can move around them and maybe they'll be solid now after freezing overnight. And then I get to go up into the pass area and see how that works out. So worst case scenario, I could turn around and come back the way I came. Be a few extra miles to do that, and I hope I don't have to. So let's go. Last night when I crossed this snowdrift, I was post holing up to my thighs. Almost couldn't make it through right there. But now I can walk right on top of the snow. What a difference temperature makes. And so long to Divide Lake. That was actually a nice little gem, I thought. Hidden up here on behind the ridge. And that's the trail out of it. Wow. That's freaking amazing. Beautiful. The main trail stays on the other side of the valley, going up this gulch here. But that's the treed and shaded side, so I've been on this, I guess it's the north side, and there's a alternative trail. Enough people had the same idea that there's enough of a trail to follow on this side. And here we are up in the actual pass. There's going to be a little bit more elevation at the end of this high valley here, this plateau, but only a few hundred feet, I think. Feeling pretty good about my chances of getting through here. In case you're wondering, the snowshoes that I'm using are the MSR shifts, which are actually youth snowshoes and not intended to carry anywhere near my weight. And these would be pretty useless in the winter, but in the springtime when the snow is pretty consolidated, they work pretty well, being just enough of a platform to keep me from post holing like crazy. So, pretty good tool for 2.5 pounds to get through a situation like this. Well, between the snowshoeing and lots of filming because the scenery is so stupendous, that took me 3 hours just to get up and through there, even though it's only about 2 miles. But it's worth it. Can't see the trail down from here yet, but I think that's it right there, right along the edge of that scree slope. Clearly this little bunny rabbit knows the way to go. I should probably stick with him. Check out all those snowballs coming down that edge. That's where we came from so far. I decided to take the snowshoes off here. This is pretty steep and rocky, and they would be more likely to trip me than help me. So we'll see if I need to put them back on again. Seems like a good chance of it down in that valley. But that's okay. That's why I got them. Well, the approach on the other side was relatively straightforward, not too difficult, so I was sort of assuming that this side was going to be the same way, but it's turning out to be quite a challenge. Part of the problem is it's 1 o'clock now, and so I'm punching through the snow even with the snowshoes. And also, there's a lot of trouble with route finding, trying to find the trail. Well, I've gone from no trail and solid snow to pretty good signs of a trail, even some cairns and just patches of snow. So that's definite progress. And the view doesn't suck, which helps pass the time. Well, that snow was pretty relentless, but I finally made it down into the open country below the worst of it, and so that means I can take the snow baskets off my trekking poles. Now, I plan to do a video pretty soon about maximizing your trekking poles, and one of the things that I do is to take off the inner. There's a small basket that sits above the snow basket typically, and that's just wasted. It's not doing any good, it's just extra weight at the end of the swing, so it actually adds up quite a bit over the miles. But I definitely do save the snow baskets, and just so you can see that you can still use them just fine without that small basket that is usually seated up higher than the snow basket. There's still threads on the end of the trekking pole that hold the snow basket in place, as they certainly did today. One last look back before we leave the high country and head on down Nicola Creek. Only about 3 miles to that bridge that I crossed yesterday and the start of the loop. Well, I made it back to the bridge, and I had sort of thought about camping here and doing a little fishing. Apparently, even though the Nicola Creek looks tiny, I know people who have caught some pretty good trout in it. But I can't see stopping at 4 o'clock already, and the trailhead is just 2.5 miles further, so I think I'll probably keep going. Well, I have to confess that the first time I came up over this rise and saw what I was up against, I almost bagged the whole thing, figuring there's no way I'm going to be able to get up through that top pass. But it worked out. I was able to do it. The moral to the story here is don't let your fears talk you out of stuff before you've even tried. Well, I made it back to the truck at 5:30 and drove down the road a little ways to find this awesome spot to park for the night next to the Big Sheep Creek. Pretty happy about that. I know what you're probably thinking about now.
For a guy who professes to love backpacking, I seem to spend a lot of time sleeping in the back of my truck. See, the thing is, I love my home as much as I love being out here in the wilderness, and I get to be like a horse on the way back from the field, seeing the barn door open when I'm nearing the end of a hike. Can't help thinking if I just go a little further, I'll get home sooner the next day. It's a good problem to have.
I'm thinking that might be a good fishing hole. Way down in this amazing canyon.